How are your projects going? Feeling good? Feeling okay?
Feeling good, sir.
All right. That's what's up. Cool. All right. Well, I don't even know how much time I got because we're starting late, but we're just going to go. We're going to see how it goes. This is just a nice, chill presentation. I'm a data engineer here at That Game Company, and a lot of people just don't know that that's a thing that you can be. When I was in college, and I'll just get into it, I went to West Virginia University. I started off as a physics major, and then for a little while I was looking at mechanical and aerospace engineering, and then I decided on computer science because I liked that it was nice and safe and contained. You didn't have like air and water and shit with all your engineers. It's just computers, right? Like it's nice, and I like that. So I switched to computer science, but I was just like a basic computer science major. I didn't know what I wanted to do with that, where I wanted to work. Didn't really care. Got a job, it was fine. But my first job was at Tata Consultancy Services, which sucked. Don't work for them. It was awful. They're just this mega corporation. They don't care about their employees. But when I started in a group of 30 people, and like 10 of them went down the IBM stack, 10 of them went into QA testing, and my lucky 10 went into data engineering. So we got certified in Hadoop, which is a big data technology, and I've just been on the data track since. It's been nice to me. I worked at Angie's List, this company called Craftsy that was bought by NBC Universal, and then they shut it down, and I stayed on NBC to work on Peacock, the streaming service. And then I'm coming up on 2 years here at That Game Company, which is rad, because games are tight. The games industry is it's a weird place. I think there's a lot of places you maybe don't want to work, but this is a company I've respected for a long time, and luckily there was an opening for a data engineer, and I was looking for a job, and they hired me. It was pretty cool. And I think what's great about that is even though I don't work on the game at all, I don't know anything about game programming, but I can come in and contribute and be a valued member of the team because I'm a data engineer, because I have the skill that a lot of people don't have, but a lot of people need right now, which is nice. Let's see. So let's start out. Is data management a good growing field to get into? It is. This is a growing field that my girlfriend told me I should put on the slide. There it is. Let's see. The pool of global internet users, data creators, is still growing in the U.S. You know, most of us are on the internet. But around the world, more and more people every day are getting a smartphone and getting connected to the internet and e-commerce and all that stuff. And they're all producing a lot of data because companies know how valuable data is. So they're collecting it, they're collecting a lot of it, and they're storing it indefinitely. So not only is it a use problem, it's just a logistics storing problem. You know, just tons and tons of files and records and logs, and you got to make it usable for analysts and data scientists and other smart people to actually get insights from them. Every industry is being affected. You know, farming, big on data engineering, fashion. There's another F word that I wrote last night and then deleted it. It wasn't the curse one, but I was going for a alliteration thing. But anyway, every industry is affected, and it's because it helps you make better decisions, saves you money. Advertising is great. You know, instead of just sending me, you know, I don't like horror movies. Netflix can advertise me all the horror movies they want, but they're wasting their screen real estate and they're wasting my time because I don't like being scared. But if they were to advertise to me stand-up comedy, big stand-up comedy fan, so they'll learn that about me. They tell me, Patton Oswalt's got a new special. I'm going to watch that. You know, they spent less time on advertising me things I don't like. I got something that I did like. It's kind of win-win for everybody, other than the privacy stuff, which can get a little dicey. But there are a lot of benefits. And yeah, you need a lot of engineers to keep up with it all. And this is nice. Just some statistics. Fastest growing job in 2019, growing 50% year over year in openings, 40% in interviews. So more openings than interviews, maybe because there's not a lot of people to interview. This chart is telling. Data engineer and big data engineer both right around 2.5 applicants per open position versus 5 for data scientist, 11 for web developer, and an absurd 54 for marketing manager. It's nice only having to compete against 1.5 people compared to 53 and 8 tenths. Anyway, so what is a data engineer? First, let me ask: has anyone heard of data engineering? Does anyone have interest? Nice. Cool. Yeah, like I said, I hadn't heard of it. It makes sense. Databases, there's stuff to do. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, other than just the engineering. But typically, we'll work with analysts, scientists, and stakeholders to provide them usable data so they can do their job. I like to think of it as a service role. There are data engineers who produce value on their own, but a lot of times you're enabling other passionate people to do their jobs more effectively. And I find that really probably more rewarding, is getting to help other people succeed instead of just doing it myself. And we do that by building data pipelines. Typically they're either batch or real-time. Batch being once a day you run a pipeline on all of yesterday's data. Real-time being an event just came in, do something with it. We work all throughout the organization, which is another thing I like. Being at a game company, we've got artists and designers and community managers, as well as analysts and other engineers, but they all need data. So you get to work with all of them. Have a meeting with marketing where they want to increase their return on investment in China or something. So you provide them some data on Chinese players, their interests, what marketing might work better for them. Working with the community team is really fun because working with a live community is very interesting. I probably should have explained our game more, but it's called Sky Children of the Lake. It's a free-to-play live mobile game that is always up. It's social, so not only is the community invested in their own play, but they're very emotionally invested because they got a lot of friends, especially during lockdown. A lot of people felt a great sense of community through Sky, which is cool. But so we take great pride in keeping that community safe from hackers, bad actors, abusers, that kind of thing. So being able to provide the community team with report data where players can report each other, but prioritize it. So it's actually, they can work with it because we get a lot of reports, but providing it in a usable fashion so they can do their job effectively is really rewarding to me. Act as the point of contact for data exchange. You're the guy. I get to work with Nintendo and PlayStation, and those are the most exciting ones. But a lot of other people too, and just interact, be the face of your team to some degree, and maintain those relationships is neat. And you get to increase data readability with visualizations. You don't always have to do that. If you're in a big enough company, you're just giving the data to analysts, but I like working in startups where you wear a lot of hats and do a lot of things, so you end up doing a lot of visualizations. Core skills. Not going to go over all these, but computer science and programming, it is an engineering degree. You do need to know how to write code, architect systems and programs just like anybody else. The constraints are different, the requirements are a little different, but it's definitely still programming. Typically in Python, the Java, Scala, some other stuff is relevant. You need to know how to work with databases, especially if you get into analytics. There are these things called data warehouses, which are like databases, but more analytics driven because they're not running an app as much as they're searching for insights in data that's already been stored. There's less updates, but there's more reading a lot of data at once, so they're just kind of stored differently. Data engineers really like to make data swamp jokes. There's this thing called a data lake, which you just put all your data in as a file into S3 or GCS or some system, and they're like, oh, it's more of a swamp than a lake, and it's fine. My friend Noah had some, I don't even remember it, but it was something it's not a data lake until I can drown you in it. It was a whole thing. There's a lot of data, and you got to keep track of it. There's a lot of cool ways to do it. Question: in your studies, do you do a lot of cloud things? Do you use AWS or GCP or anything? Interesting. I didn't either.
I tried using AWS once, but it was painful.
Okay.
Yep.
I gotta say, yeah, AWS is great. I like GCP more. It's a little more user friendly, but it also has a bunch of weird bugs. But the cloud is like super big in professional work. But it's something I didn't really use in college either. But it's really nice. You know, instead of like having an on-premises
GCP means Google Cloud.
Google Cloud platform.
Oh,
Yeah.
you should like not abbreviate abbreviations because that makes it more confusing.
That makes sense. But anyway, it's you know, all of the computers are just in Google land. So you don't have to have like a whole server bank that you're managing and updating and upgrading and making sure they don't catch on fire. Like Google's doing all that. And especially in the data engineering world, but also in a lot of other worlds, serverless deployment is really big. And it's kind of a lie because of course there's a server, but the point is it's not your server. So you have some code, maybe in a container or something, you run it for like a minute on Google's machines and you only pay for that minute, and then like someone else is using that machine. So anyway, I was hoping you guys had more cloud experience, but that's okay. I didn't either. When I got out of college, I learned it all in my first couple jobs, but it's pretty cool. You're gonna like it.
I think it's just difficult because, especially Amazon, I don't know, they make it very difficult for people to sign up for accounts, and
Okay.
the classes out there aren't very easy.
Fair. Yeah, and there's a free tier, but it's kind of daunting because you do have to like, you know, you have to pay for machine use, and you don't want to pay for things if you're just trying it out. I do think there's a decent free tier if you can like figure out how to navigate all that, but it is confusing, right? Because it's for like enterprises, and there's security and networking and all sorts of high-level stuff you probably don't have to care about as a student. But anyway, it's as a data engineer, it's something that you probably have to work with, as well as I have listed like cloud DevOps and CI/CD and all these things. And a lot of times the application team will have like a full-time DevOps person, and that's where like you're writing your application, you're writing code, but you know, the DevOps person is like making you a Kubernetes cluster. They're deploying all of your code, giving you an environment for it to run. Data engineering tends to be a little more specialized, and we don't have like a DevOps person, so you just do it yourself, which is actually really nice because you don't have to wait on anybody, but you have to like do it well enough to make it work. So it's cool. It's a little more self-reliant. Yeah, and then schema design. That's another thing. It's something that I was never taught in school. It's just like, how do you actually store your data? What tables make the most sense? Where it makes sense, like for an analyst who's never seen your data, but they can go in and be like, you got a dim store, you got a dim date, a customer, a product. Okay, these are all like your nouns, and then you got this fact table, which is a verb. You say, well, this customer bought this item from the store on this date. Analytics, and it's just there's a whole lot of depth into like properly storing data in a way where it can be read and it can be stored efficiently and cheaply, and there's all sorts of trade-offs along the way. This is a quick one. Does anyone have interest in data science? Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Like machine learning, AI. I don't have as much experience in that as I'd like, but like it's super neat. I will say it's sexier than data engineering. It's like, oh, data science, right? It's mysterious.
Is this like statistics, but like evolved?
And then
Is this like statistics, but like evolved?
yeah. No, it kind of is. It's really, yeah, statistics and math and computer learning. And this is kind of like where the data engineer fits. You know, you have to work with the actual application engineers on collecting the data, making sure they send it to you in a usable way, moving it, storing it, transforming it, making it in a usable state for analytics or data science people, in which case they can, you know, do their experimentation and AI, deep learning, and all these wonderful things that are great, but data science is like, it's hard and you have to be really involved, and you don't want to be spending your time building your data sets. You know, you want to have it, you want everything to just work, and then you can spend your time actually thinking about data science, which is where this is important. here are a couple examples. I had a cool video, but it had some stuff that we weren't allowed to show, so I just got screenshots. I apologize. But so these are levels from our game, and what we did is we created a 3D like aggregation heat map where we can. So like there's no hard-coded data. These are the shapes of the levels, but it's only because we grabbed player data. And if you guys are doing our challenges, it's basically the same player data. You just say like, for this point in the map, over this time range, how much stuff happened here. And the point was, I mean, obviously hotspots are interesting, but we wanted to find friction points in the levels where players are quitting. So we could say like, hey, a ton of players are quitting right here. Show me individual player paths that terminate right here. And then we'd see like, oh, you know, they all kind of come this way, and then, oh, you know, there's like a block in the thing, and they don't know where to go forward, so they just quit. So then, you know, you can remove that block. You can have like a window or something that makes them want to go around and then continue the level. And yeah, helps with other stuff, helps with crashes, lets you know where people are spending money or talking. There's just cool data stuff. This was something I did at Craftsy, where I was a digital marketing engineer, and we wanted to better advertise to our existing customers. So yeah, the challenge was to use their activity data that we collect based on their actions, and you know, send targeted advertisements to them through email, Facebook, and Google Ads. And Craftsy is a company. It's like e-commerce and tutorials in the crafting space, so like knitting and sewing and cake decorating and all these things. So we would say like, hey, who watched a knitting video and bought cake decorating supplies? We've got this crazy new video where you knit a cake. Though they're gonna love it. Well, they better, because we made it, so we better advertise it to them. So you would create a group, and then you would basically write a query that says like, hey, what constitutes this group? Maybe you know, they bought something in the last 7 days, they bought supplies, and yeah, that's basically it. And then you just, you know, you run your query every day, sync up to Facebook and Google Ads, and then send them targeted ads throughout the day. Pretty straightforward, but it is a good use case of what a data engineer does. And then this last example, optimization, really important. If you're using big data where we store, you know, several terabytes of data a day, it can get very expensive even in the cloud. So our BigQuery costs were going up every single day because you're storing all your historical data and adding more. I have no idea what time it is, by the way. We're 10:40. Okay. So I did a thing. I optimized, I archived, dropped costs by 40%, which is great because you can hire another full-time engineer with that kind of money, and data engineer stuff. Day in the life. Potential career progression, similar to any other engineer, just data engineer, senior data engineer, lead. As long as you like engineering, you can stay as an individual contributor who focuses on the tech, or you can obviously do more management, VP, CDO if you really want to. But just like any other engineer, you've got a full career path ahead of you. Related roles, if this sounds uninteresting to you, there are analytics engineers, which are like data engineers but focus more on the analytics side of things. Machine learning engineers, which help out data scientists more, like data science pipelines are so complex, especially if you want to automate them, have them run, have them continually refresh with new data. So that's actually a really new field. Like, it's really only popped up in the last couple of years. We have like a full-time machine learning engineer. And that's actually neat. I would like to do more of that, because it's like data science, but you're still doing engineering. Data governance is like a non-technical role, but it's more making sure we're storing everything, making sure we keep a record of what data actually means, which is really important, because if you just have a field that says user seniority, like what does that mean? Does that mean they played a certain amount of days, they played for a certain amount of seasons? And I mean, you'd think you would know, but a lot of analysts will just be like, oh, it's user seniority, I'll use that. And then problems arise. So governance is cool. Database engineers, you don't see them anymore because of the cloud. There's a lot of on-premise environments. You get people whose whole job is like to keep a database up and running, which is not fun. Once again, cloud is great. DevOps engineer, we kind of talked about. And a backend engineer, this is more like actually working on the app. This is like real time, you're dealing with data, you're dealing with databases, but it's all in the service of providing a functional product to the end user. So that's actually a nice balance. I think if I wasn't doing data engineering, I'd probably be doing backend because I've just never cared about front-end web dev and that kind of thing. Anyway, related fields where you're all kind of doing some similar stuff. This is a note on the data engineer experience and how it can change very drastically depending on if you're in a large corporation versus startup. I've mostly worked at startups, but the consultancy company and NBC were obviously these massive corporations. And these are just little startups that you've probably never heard of, which is valid, because that ties into points. So large corporations, they have lots of data, but they have lots of data engineers and lots of existing systems and tech debt. So you're going to have a much more specific role with a narrow scope, maybe just maintaining a single pipeline, which is, there's a lot of data coming in, and maybe the schema changes, maybe something breaks, maybe there's a version update. You're just kind of maintaining stuff. It's not super interesting, but it's necessary to keep a large corporation running. There's a lot of processes, just as a company grows and things happen, you just need to follow more processes. Stuff happens and they're like, we can't let that happen again. So they make a bunch of rules and you gotta follow the rules. And it's just a lot of people. Definitely a potential for larger scale impact on the world, like Google, Amazon, obviously impacting the world like crazy. But there's so many people in your company that you're really gonna have to rise to the top to make a big difference in your company. Versus a startup where there's less data, a lot of times you're gonna be the only data engineer. If not, there's gonna be a couple of them, which is fine. You're gonna be busy, you're gonna wear a lot of roles, wear a lot of hats, you're gonna talk to a lot of people, build a lot more new tech. Personally, this is where I'm more excited. I like being the dude at a startup where they're just like, we need to do data stuff. And they're just like, call that guy. Like, it's kind of fun. As opposed to just like, we need to do data stuff. Talk to my boss. Like, it's fine, but it's fun being the guy. Less process, all of these crazy shenanigans haven't happened yet, so there's not rules to stop you from doing them again. Potential for large impact on your company, because you really, you make a big impact on people's lives. You let them do their jobs better. But, your company might never do anything. These are all startups that I've either worked for or interviewed with, and, have you heard of any of these? Has anybody heard of any of these? Okay.
I not before today.
There you go. Let's see. All right, we're almost done. Potential downsides. I know it's not for everybody. Not necessarily building the products. Maybe there's less glory when we do an all hands, and then engineers and designers and artists are like, look at all this cool stuff we made for the game. Everyone's like, oh my god, that's so nice. And I'm like, I saved 40%, and they're like, all right. They're like, it's cool, but unless you're at a data-focused company, you're not going to be the rock star developer there probably, which is fine unless you really want that. Answering to many stakeholders, some less technical, that's just part of it. You're working with community, you're working with marketing, and they're great, they're really good at their jobs, but they don't have the data insight you do. I think that's a plus, because you get to be a superhero. You're like, hey, I wrote this query, it took 2 seconds, and they're like, that's awesome. That is exactly what I need. But you might not like that. You might like working for very smart technical people, and there's a bit of both. And yet, not every company needs a data engineer, especially game developers. I feel very fortunate that game company did, because we've got this live online game. But, there's a lot of other developers I would like to work for, but they just don't need a data engineer. So, it's just part of it. It's not like a full stack engineer, DevOps person. Probably they all need a job there. But publishers do, like Ubisoft, PlayStation, EA, they all need but here's why I like it. It's needed in every industry, not for every company, but certainly for every industry. Like I said earlier, high demand, low supply, so it pays well, it's nice to feel needed, and honestly, the interview processes aren't that bad. They're just happy you're there. That's not entirely true. Yes, I've gotten a lot of no's in my life, but it could be worse. It can be more chill compared to other product engineering disciplines. I think that's true. Dan from my team was saying earlier that, you know, when something he makes breaks, people tweet about it. But like when something I make breaks, like a green box turns red, and I'm just like, and I just like rerun it. It's fine. It's just not that bad. Like I said, it's a service role. You get to help others do their job more effectively, and definitely constantly evolving. There's a lot of new tools. It's still like a nascent field that's growing, and we're doing things differently, which is like annoying sometimes because you work with a lot of open source things that don't really work all the way, but it's fun. It's fun time. So I think this is my last slide. I looked through the MIT curriculum and just wanted to figure out like good classes to take. I don't think there's any data engineering majors, like maybe even anywhere. So just a computer science degree and interest is fine. But if you are interested, you know, everyone should have algorithms and data structures. Distributed algorithms is really important for any large scale data that's all going to be distributed. Statistics, networking, especially if you want to get into machine learning and AI, so that. Natural language processing, data mining, data visualizations, data things. And that's it. I don't know how much time we have left, but probably not. But any questions, I will
You mentioned abuse reporting and how you use data analysis to process it. Have you run into any like abuse of abuse reporting, like people like polluting